All right, does this sound like your life lately?
Dum, dum, dum.
Exhausted, burnout, nagging sense you're running on fumes? Well, if so, you're not alone. And our next guest says it's not your fault you're feeling this way.
I'm laughing because we just said we were both like mentally
Feeling that
tired before we came down. Okay, in his new book, Rethinking Employee Resilience, Dr. Dan Pelton dives into the real problem behind our burnout. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
For writing this book.
Yeah, great to be here.
It's a different look on burnout. What is it about burnout? How do you recognize the signs that you are dealing with it? What are some of those signs?
So there's common symptoms that we all experience. So there's exhaustion is usually the first stage, physical, emotional, feeling totally drained. Then cynicism is the second one. So cynicism is our attitudes. So we start to say, this place is terrible, I can't work here. And we do that to prevent further exhaustion because we don't like to feel exhausted. And then the last thing is reduced personal efficacy. That's where you're like, I'm just not making a difference anymore. What's interesting about burnout is that the catalyst is chronic work-related stress. Literally, that's how the World Health defines it. So it has so work actually is the catalyst. So it's not your fault, really. It's caused by the DNA and the architecture of a culture.
Interesting. And we just heard about a culture that could be made better. But what steps can people take to make their situation better?
So there are a lot of things you can do. I'll keep it simple, though. I would say first thing is get a baseline assessment of those three things I talked about. You can go on Psychology Today. They have a really interesting assessment you can take. It'll plot you on a bell curve. I would also recommend having your team or talking to your team about that as well, because they can take it. If you're super sophisticated, you can create like this aggregate profile. And I've done that with teams before. And I would say what else you do is you talk about what is driving our stress. Usually it's the same thing. Usually it's workload or a sense of fairness or a sense of impropriety. There's common things that you'll see, but it's really important to talk explicitly to your team about what's happening.
Is it different for different generations? Is your age driving how burnout or overworked you feel in a workplace?
We do see rates much higher, unfortunately, in younger generations, around 82%, and that trajectory goes downhill a little bit. When you're older, you see about 50-ish%, so it's about a 30% decrease. A lot of that's because of job insecurity. I mean, imagine a 21-year-old saying no. That's really hard to do. So that's partially what's driving it. I'll say one last thing about this cohort, which is interesting. There's a concept called engaged exhausted, where people are over-engaged to the point of exhaustion. And that's the typical profile that we see in burnout, but it's pretty hidden because we don't notice it. So people are engaging themselves to the point where, and they silent quit. These are the highest group who actually leave the workforce.
Wow. Oh, we've heard a lot about that silent quitting.
So they're not talking about it. They just are burnt out. They leave.
Yeah, and these are your highest performers. And they're like, I've just had it. I don't want it. I'm gone. So it's super critical to check in what I talked about with your team about these things.
There's a lot of books out there that write about similar things. How is your book different?
This is not a self-help book in its traditional sense. There's a lot out there. There's many steps you can take to do X, Y, and Z. But this takes a critical lens and looks at organizational culture. How can we as how can we as the CEO, how can we as employee 1000, how can we create culture change? I'll just be candid. I'm sick of books written just for the top 5% of leaders and not the 95% of the workforce. So I wrote it in both ways. Top-down change, bottom-up change. So it's really for everyone.
Does this draw on your personal life experiences? You've been in some high-stress environments in
For
your
sure.
life.
I was in the military. I was deployed to Afghanistan. It was super overwhelming as a psychologist. But what I saw there was interesting is that high-performing units generally had healthier cultures. Low-performing units didn't. So I sort of took that a long time ago, and I said, there's got to be something in the upstream DNA of cultures that's creating this massive load of burnout or mental health-related issues. Very personal. I've experienced burnout. Maybe we all have experienced burnout.
When we put up the three things, do you have burnout? I'm sure
check,
everybody was like, at one time or another. Thank you for being here today. We could continue this conversation. Got to get his book. Dr. Pelton's new book, Rethinking Employee Resilience, is available wherever books are sold.